Truth.
Truth. Welcome to Trusting the Truth with Samuel Tolley, where we view the world through the lens of Jesus Christ. We do not view Jesus Christ through the lens of the world. How you doing? This is Sam Tolley with Trusting the Truth. Today I want to talk about, or as I entitled this show, Vote for Kamala. Are you insane? And I don't say that frivolously. I am quite serious. This woman is nowhere near being commander in chief material. This woman has displayed herself to be inadequate in just about everything she does and lies constantly. Unfortunately for us, we have a media that lies constantly as well, and they lie for her. But to give you an example of one of her lies, and I'm not even going to, since I said it, I'm going to mention it. The fact that she talked about working for McDonald's as a youngster. Who would tell that lie if it wasn't true? Unless you're trying to make yourself be what you're not. This is a woman that said that she grew up with her neighbors that liked their lawns. Well, my neighbors liked their lawns too, and I liked mine. But this woman also said that when she was in college, she used to listen to Tupac and Biggie sitting in her room smoking marijuana. But when she was in college, Tupac and Biggie had never recorded anything yet. So the question is there any honesty in this person? And will this person stand up and represent us as an honest broker? In this here election cycle, our dishonest news media was telling us that Joe Biden was as sharp as a tack and on top of everything and ready up until they set him up in the debate to lose because they knew he wasn't. And the reason why I say they set him up was they did not help him as they did in 2020. They let him out there to flounder, which they knew he would do and expose himself. So when he exposed himself, they had the avenue to get him out of there. Now, there were some in the Democratic Party that did not want Kamala to be the nominee. However, Joe said he endorsed Kamala. And that presented a problem for some of the brokers in the Democrat Party, those that are really pushing the buttons. Because one of the things that Joe that helped him get across the finish line is when he told a bunch of black people that he would he would bring in a woman of color. And there were certain black people that I guess are influential in the Democrat Party that were saying that if you did not bring in a woman of color, they would not vote for him, nor endorse him, nor encourage anyone else to vote for him. So they bring in Kamala. And now everybody's running around saying that she's black. Well, whether she's black or not, is she competent? Is she the person that we want? And getting back to those power brokers that didn't want Kamala, they weren't going to fight against this woman of color unless they were going to replace her with another woman of color. And the only woman that the Democratic Party had lined up of color would have been Michelle Obama, which presents a whole nother list of problems. And she didn't want the job. Or she didn't want the scrutiny. So here we are with this woman, Kamala, and instead of them having a mini primary or doing something to allow the voters to make a decision, they just put her in there and the voters had no say. The same woman who in 2020 ran for president did not win one primary. This woman had no standing to be where she is, but the news media dutifully has pinned her up just like they pinned up Joe 4 years ago. And to show you how the news media operates and how they expect people just to go along with the mantra, they will fabricate talking points that everyone will adhere to, and we're supposed to accept it. So the first thing out the gate was the joy that Kamala brings. Let's look at a little video about the joy, and let's see where we stand with it.
Compassionate, careful, joyous leader.
And yesterday, what you saw is joy.
And it was the power of joy.
You know what I love more than anything? The joy. You can't underestimate the power of joy in this campaign. Don't underestimate the joy factor of this. They're going to bring the joy.
People were also just feeling relieved and telling me about how happy they were to see some joy back in the party.
And what we saw last night was this joy and this positivity. You have this happy, joyful, positive ticket.
The most remarkable demonstration of support, enthusiasm, joy.
This idea of joy.
Joy.
Being joyful is part of the American identity.
There is joy in the future. There is joy in having your boss be a black woman. There is.
Wait a minute. Let me pause this for a second. Because when that guy said that there is joy in having your boss being a black woman, I don't understand what that means. I've had bosses that are black. I've had bosses that are white. I've had different bosses, but I've never thought of any kind of joy associated with the pigmentation of the person I work for. Let's continue.
In what is coming.
What we're hearing from this vice president, future president, is a message of freedom and joy.
I just love that we have this new joy.
You could see it just so filled with the joy of the work.
The fact that we saw that exuberance last night, that joy.
One is hope and joy, and the other is fear and anger.
Oh, you could really see joy and exuberance versus grievance and retribution.
People are tired of fear and anger, and so they're going to give to them the hope and the joy.
Well, you know, there is fear and anger, and there should be, because we're feared that these folks are destroying our country, and they're angry because they're doing it, and they're just doing it mercilessly, and they're sitting around here trying to tell us joy. Well, that talking point fell away real fast because it was like stupid. It wasn't saying anything. It wasn't proving anything. It wasn't leading anything. It's just some colorful word that means nothing. And it's not going to put food on people's tables. But see, our media, they're still about trying to get us to embrace what God tells us not to embrace. Because these people are nothing, what I call them as media whores. They're nothing but prostitutes. Prostitutes that operate on your emotions. You know, these are prostitutes that get paid to run their mouth to tell us all kinds of nonsense. And for a Christian to vote for a woman that stands against God is not questionable, but it is downright disobedient. And these people that claim that they worship God and are going to vote for someone whose position is antithetical to God is insane. You know, in Matthew chapter 12, verse 30, Jesus said, "Whoever is not with me is against me, and whoever does not gather with me scatters." You know, Jesus is the way and the truth and the life. He is God in the flesh. He is our Lord and Savior for those of us that say we're Christians. We don't have the option of picking and choosing what we're supposed to obey. It says in John chapter 14, verse 15, "If you love me, keep my commandments." He tells the disciples in Matthew 28 to go into all the world and teach everyone to be a disciple, a learner of him, an obeyer of him. You know, God wants obedience more than sacrifice. So if we're going to sit over here and think that we can follow people who are against God, we're in trouble. You know, and then sit over there and try to say we are for God. Well, this woman, this Kamala Harris, is against God. Period. I don't care what she claims to be. I heard that she's supposed to be Baptist or some nonsense. or part Baptist, and then she's with her Hindu roots. I don't care. The Bible is clear that Jesus is the way and the only way, and our obedience to him is our responsibility. The first institution God created was marriage between one man and one woman. And one of the things these Democrats are about is the destruction of marriage. And also, the devil was about the destruction of marriage. Back in Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2 and verse 24. Therefore, man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. That was God's order to us. Well, Kamala, when she was Attorney General, was against that, and she still is. Look at this short clip.
Prop 8.
Yep.
The equality measure around marriage.
Mm-hmm. The idea that we have people who do not have rights equal to others is ridiculous.
I got to stop that right there. That's a lie. Everyone has the right to marry. No one in the United States was denied the right to marry of legal age in mind. Her trying to equate same-sex so-called marriage with marriage between a man and a woman as a civil right is anathema to biblical worldview that has governed this world for 6,000 something years, and these United States for over 200 years.
That election for Attorney General fell on a couple of issues in particular, but one is that my opponent said he would defend Prop 8, which would have banned same-sex marriage, and I said I would not defend it. Frankly,
when I was a citizen of California, as whacked out and crazy as California is, when Proposition 8 came in, we accepted it. Now, if memory serves me, there was like two different propositions that came in. Proposition 8, and I think the other one was Proposition 22. I don't remember which one was first. But since this rise in same-sex marriage mantras running through the country, we put in a referendum to codify marriages between one man and one woman. Like I said, I don't remember which one was which. I will assume that it was Proposition 8 first. And when that went, it was put before the voters voted for it, yes. Then the California Supreme Court said that was no good. Like I said, one of these could be wrong. That was no good. And we would have to have, we would have to change the Constitution. So we made another amendment to change the California Constitution. And I guess that was 22. And it passed. So the citizens who were still, in my opinion, too stupid to get these Democrats out of power, they still voted to maintain marriage between a man and a woman. Then some federal judge or some state judge or whatever in California said, well, that's unconstitutional. So even though the citizens voted for marriage twice, some legislator or some bureaucratic a judicial person just threw out the will of Californians. The problem with Californians is they never threw out the politicians that put these judges in place in the first place, so they can keep running these crazy laws on us. Let's continue with Miss Harris here.
Rachel, as the daughter of parents who were active in the civil rights movement, I refuse to stand in the doorway of the wedding chapel blocking same-sex couples' ability to marry. I fought to defend people's right to marry the person they love. And then the word came back that we had won the case. And I got a call. The plaintiffs have asked that you would be the person to perform their marriage. And I was like, are you kidding me? Of course. And so we walked into City Hall, and while we were there, the other plaintiffs, a couple who were in Los Angeles, were trying to get married there, and the clerk wouldn't do it.
We cannot do anything until we hear from the state.
Somebody told me what's going on, and they passed me the phone.
Excuse me, I've got the Attorney General on the phone right here.
You must start the marriages immediately.
All right, I will take that as our notice.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Have a good day and enjoy it. It's going to be fun.
I'm looking forward to it. Okay.
By virtue of the power and authority vested in me by the state of California, I now declare you spouses for life. That was a moment in the history of the ongoing fight for the civil rights of people. There are some things for which we should have no patience because justice delayed is justice denied. When we are talking about the fight for civil rights and for equality and equal justice under law, we should not have so much patience that we deny people justice.
Equal justice. Everyone has the right of marriage. No one was ever denied that right in the United States in this 21st or 20th century. Ever since, anyway, the fact of it is marriage, God ordained marriage between a man and a woman. Most civilization is run on the premise of marriage between a man and a woman. Two men and two women cannot procreate. Society is not built on those kind of relationships. And it's amazing. I was going to do a video, but I don't have time for it today. Listening to several Democrats talking about we need these illegals in here because we're not repopulating ourselves. The need of a society to repopulate itself is 2.1 births per couple. And the United States is like 1.77 or somewhere like that. Yes, we are not repopulating ourselves because we're killing off our babies in abortion. And so, the warped mind of these people, because all they care about is power. They don't care about the country and its culture and its history. They just care about bringing in more people that they can pay less and control and hopefully vote Democrat if they can run them through the finish line and then keep perpetual power without worrying or caring about the nature and the structure of our civilization. So instead of them trying to have citizens of this country have babies, they encourage us to abort our babies and then bring in a bunch of folks to fill the gap. It's counterintuitive, but that's the way our society is running these days. Now, these people, Kamala, there's some interesting things going on with this person or the history of this person. There was a time when she was Attorney General of California where she decided that she was going to prosecute citizens whose children were truant, who didn't go to school enough. And she was going to lock up parents. Well, the media whores, and especially the whores that work for MSNBC, they said that wasn't true. And let me remind you of something where it says in Revelation chapter 21 and verse 8, but for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars. It's interesting how the Holy Spirit had the Apostle John name off all those sins: cowardly, faithless, detestable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters. And then it stops and said, and all liars. Their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. So, maybe the Holy Spirit is thinking, or not thinking, but expressing the fact that these liars lead other people down the path of destruction. Other people who don't take the time to pay attention, to understand what's going on, to read the Word of God, or just, they depend on their leaders and the news media and people like that. So I'm going to show you this clip about Kamala Harris and her supposedly not locking up people when she was Attorney General.
Ever since Kamala Harris became the de facto Democratic presidential nominee, Republicans are talking an awful lot about her time as a California prosecutor, particularly the accusation that she jailed parents whose kids were chronically absent from school, otherwise known as truancy. Whitley Yates, the director of diversity for Indiana's Republican Party, even highlighted that claim right here on last week's The Sunday Show.
I'm talking about, like she stated, when she was a prosecutor and the way in which she prosecuted parents for the truancy. I'm talking about when she...
Not a single parent went to jail for that, by the way.
And did. And she...
So that's incorrect.
When she was...
Let me pick up on Amisha Cross's not a single parent rebuttal and set the record straight on this. It's true. Kamala Harris never sent parents to jail for their kids' truancy. As San Francisco DA, Harris was heavily invested in ending truancy. She explained in a 2009 op-ed, quote, "I see what happens on the back end of school failures. Young lives are being lost to street violence or prison time at an appalling rate. We must also take seriously the task of keeping our kids in school." 3 data points drove her to act. 44% of truant students were in elementary school. 94% of all homicide victims in San Francisco under the age of 25 were high school dropouts. And 2/3 of California prison inmates were high school dropouts. So Harris launched a program aimed at kids missing a lot of school, 60 to 80 days out of a 180-day school year. Struggling families were linked to resources they needed to help keep their kids in schools. Those who ignored warnings were brought before a special truancy court where they faced misdemeanor charges. Not one person went to jail, not one. And according to the San Francisco Unified School District, Harris's initiative helped reduce truancy among elementary school kids by 23% over a 2-year period.
Okay, he says not one person went to jail. But before I offer information to rebut that, let's talk about these numbers of how bad these kids are, or their education performance, or how they ended up out of school. What he doesn't talk about, or he would never mention, is the fact that California, just like every other state that the teachers union is pretty much in control, is against vouchers, is against parental decision making on where their kid can go to school. If they can, vouchers, if you're not aware of it, each school receives X amount of dollars for people being in school each day. And that was probably one of the problems that Kamala was having. The schools were losing too much money when kids didn't show up. But if a body was put in the classroom, then the school would get paid. California had instituted a program before I moved out the state 4 years ago, whereas you suspend a bad student, but he stays in the school. Because why? Because they want that money. They need to count that body so they can get paid. California, they don't want you to have educational freedom to bring your kids whatever education they want. They want you to bring them in there for them to indoctrinate them and teach them what they want to teach them. And in many cases, it's not much. California also instituted a law a few years ago where every student had to learn about the contributions of famous homosexuals. Now, when I was growing up, we learned about all kinds of people. We learned about good people. We learned about bad people. We learned about people that were assets to society, and we learned about people that weren't. But what we never were instructed about were peoples that had certain sexual proclivities. We didn't talk about that. We had a science class, I believe in like the 6th grade, where they talked about human biology and how a person would become pregnant. But we never had history classes about people that engaged in sodomy. Well, that's a requirement in California. And by the way, there's another requirement in California that if a child believes that they are in the wrong body, That is, say if little Joey, who's 12-year-old, thinks he's a girl, it is against the law for the teachers in the school to tell the parents. Not only that, it's against the law for the parents to get counseling, professional counseling for little Joey. So we got these drag queen story hour things going on now, where the pedophiles and the sexual perverts are running the asylum. Where they're having drag queen story hour all the way to kindergarten. They're indoctrinating our kids from almost the cradle to the grave if they get out of the womb, because such for abortion and whatnot. They're indoctrinating them on sexual perversion, and they're teaching it to them as a normal thing. They're trying to prevent parents from educating their children the right way and getting them away from schools that teach debauchery, forcing debauchery down the throats, almost literally, of our children, and then trying to stop us from taking care of it. It's gotten so bad with this sexual transgender nonsense in the state of California that if you have two parents that live in another state and their child wants to have a sexual change, and say parent A has custody of the child in their state, but parent B takes the child and runs to California, California will not follow up and honor any subpoenas or warrants from that state for parent A, because it's a sanctuary state, not only for illegal migrants, but for sexually perversions of children. But let's get back past California and let's talk about the media whore lie that we just heard. How Kamala never locked anybody up for truancy. And we got like a 13-minute video here that I'll talk in between about a woman whose child had sickle cell anemia. A woman was doing everything she was supposed to do, and Kamala had her locked up.
I intend to fight for Black Lives Matters. I intend to fight.
If Black Lives matter to her, why didn't I matter?
I don't agree what Kamala Harris did to my mom, and I don't agree with what she's done to other parents as well.
My message to all Americans, especially Black Americans, do not trust Kamala Harris.
I'm so proud of you right now, because you walked all the way down here and I wasn't expecting you to walk.
My daughter, Shayla, suffers from sickle cell anemia, a chronic, painful genetic disease.
As a prosecutor and law enforcement, I have a huge stick.
It's a very sharp stabbing pain, and it hurts a whole lot. Like from my chest all the way down, it hurts, including my side.
So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy.
When Kamala Harris was the California Attorney General, she had me arrested and prosecuted because my handicapped daughter was sick in the hospital and had missed some days of school.
I spent a majority.
You heard what she said? She had her arrested and prosecuted, whereas that lying whore from MSNBC said it never happened.
My time here at the hospital.
Kamala's horrible policies hurt mothers like me and the Black community. My name is Sheree Peoples, and this is my story. I am a single mother. I've worked as a certified nursing assistant and a caregiver. My daughter Shayla was born in 2002. When she was born, she was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia. It affects all major organs in the body and also causes extreme pain. Her whole life, she has been on medications like morphine and Dilaudid to help her control the pain. In addition, she had to undergo blood transfusions every 3 weeks. My lifestyle became taking care of her almost full time. It is pretty typical for kids with Shayla disability to miss a lot of school.
I just got out of school. I've done 3 full days this week. Oh, I'm so tired.
And for years, the teachers were aware of her condition and her absences were all excused. California schools get their state and federal funding based off of average daily attendance. Schools are paid about $30 per student per day.
In San Francisco, we threatened the parents of truants with prosecution.
I first heard of Kamala Harris when she got elected California Attorney General.
We are putting parents on notice. We are going to make sure that you face the full force and consequences of the law.
She wrote a report saying truancy was costing California schools $1.4 billion a year in funding.
Because of truancy, California public schools lose $1.4 billion a year in funding.
I want money.
Kamala then wrote a law making it criminal for parents if their kids miss school time. Kamala even wrote a book called Smart on Crime.
You can read an excerpt from the book that she just plugged shamelessly. It's called Smart on Crime.
Talking about arresting parents for truancy.
I sent a letter on my letterhead out to every parent in the public school system.
In 2012, like all California parents, I received a threatening letter from Kamala Harris saying we'll go to jail for a year if our kids even miss 10% of school days. It was like a crazy intimidation tactic.
I'm going to start prosecuting parents for truancy.
I thought, wow, this woman doesn't have any empathy. Is it because she's not a mother? I also thought, how could she not understand it would disproportionately affect people of color, single black mothers? But honestly, I didn't imagine it could affect me. Her teachers had her medical records from the Children's Hospital. I even had a 504 plan, which was an agreement between the school district and the parents to provide care for students with disabilities. It was April 18th, 2013, in the morning. I'm in my pajamas. I had just fed my daughter, gave her medications, sent her off to school. Little did I know, there was a warrant out for my arrest. All of a sudden, the police is outside my house, and they started banging on the door. I opened up my door, and 2 officers entered my home. They told me I was under arrest for my child missing school. They said I was going to jail. I was shocked. I said, but my baby is sick. The school knows that. And they said, go talk to Kamala Harris.
This woman, you know, it's amazing. She's supposed to be black. You know, another story about her is arresting a bunch of convicts or keeping convicts in jail past their time because they needed people to fight the forest fires. Or her keeping a man on death row who had evidence that would exonerate him. And his defense had to fight extra hard to get him off death row. And when it's the prosecutor's job to administer the law, not to just try to sit over there and keep somebody in jail. But this woman went through hell trying to take care of her daughter. A single black woman trying to take care of her daughter, and then she's fighting the bureaucracy against the state of California and Kamala Harris, who I got all these people running up to me saying, you're going to try to stop a black woman from being president? I could care less what color this person is. I care if they're competent, compassionate, and worthy of the title of commander-in-chief and president.
Place your hands behind your back.
My mom did nothing wrong. We did everything we were supposed to. I was always bringing doctor's notes, always calling the school to let them know that I was in the hospital.
Then they handcuff me. So they take me outside for what you call a perp walk. And oh my God, the TV news was there. The newspapers were there. You could swear I had killed somebody. It was degrading and humiliating. I was taken to the Criminal Justice Center. They took my mugshot. I was fingerprinted like a criminal, and I was terrified.
And it felt like I caused her so much pain. Because in reality, it is because of me, even though I know it's not directly my fault. Sorry.
The next day, the Orange County Register showed the pictures of my arrest. They even had a close-up picture of my hands in handcuffs to show here's a black mother being arrested.
It was a truancy rate at over 2.5 times that of white students.
Everyone knew most truant kids were black. I think Kamala Harris wanted me as an example to threaten other single black mothers, like, this can happen to you if you don't get your kids in class. The police even put out a press release naming me and other black single mothers like Toya Daniels who got arrested the same day. But my hell was just beginning. They gave me 2 charges: failure to supervise and encourage school attendance, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. I couldn't believe it. They framed my daughter as a gang member and basically charged me with neglect. I spent the next 2 years in court fighting these charges. Kamala assigned her nastiest prosecutors to my case.
My homicide prosecutors, my gang prosecutors. And they went over there and I said, when you go over there, look really mean.
Like 10 different prosecutors. They kept pressuring me to plead guilty and spend a year in jail, but I kept refusing because I did nothing wrong. All the time I had to spend going to court, I was struggling to care for my Shayla. I lost my job and couldn't pay rent, and we got evicted. I became homeless. We had to move into a motel.
And I ended up being in the hospital a lot during her trial. And in that hospital stay was when I had my stroke. I had a stroke about 4 or 5 days ago. And right now I'm doing pretty good. My hand is doing okay, I guess.
In 2015, after 2 years, they finally just gave up and dismissed my case. In 2018, the Supreme Court of California ruled that truancy cannot be punished by incarceration. It was unconstitutional. The courts finally stopped Kamala Harris' abuses.
I don't know if this she needs to sue the hell out of the state of California and that attorney general at that time. This is brutal. This is horrible. This is just unconscionable. And you got all these black folks running around here talking about, I need to vote for her. What's wrong with you not voting for her? I just seen a thing over this weekend where Magic Johnson's running around talking about, we need to vote for her. What's this deal? I hope my sound's been fine all along. It's crazy. Absolutely insane.
When I look back, I ask, why did Kamala Harris arrest me? Why was Kamala Harris so insensitive to a black woman with a handicapped child? Well, first, I learned that Kamala Harris has no common experience with black people. She grew up with an Indian mother. I remember she kept saying she was Indian.
To become the first Indian senator in U.S. history, which would be quite an accomplishment.
Not good.
What we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because you are Indian.
Yes.
And I learned she grew up in Canada, not in the United States, and went to a wealthy high school. I think in Canada, she must not have been exposed to American values, which respects the rights of individuals. When Kamala Harris ran for president in 2019, they asked her about arresting people like me, and she just lied her ass off.
The truancy program got a lot of criticism too. Did you actually lock anybody up?
No, we never locked anybody up. We never sent a parent to jail.
And no parent went to jail.
And we did prosecute some cases, but far few, only about 20.
It's ironic because Kamala helped raise money to bail out murderers, rioters, and thieves. But she thought I belonged in jail because I had a handicapped child. To me, Kamala is fake. She just repeats stupid things like unburdened.
What can be unburdened by what has been? What can be
unburdened by what has been.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know?
I found out she only became Attorney General because she was a mistress to the married San Francisco Mayor, Willie Brown.
Are you his daughter?
And today I see she tries appealing to black audiences by putting on fake urban accents.
And we're going to do it again in 2024.
Black people are very down to earth. This is insulting to us.
You better thank a union member for vacation time.
Kamala, how stupid do you think we are? And I saw Kamala's Twitter photo. That's from like 20 years ago. She's 60 years old today. Even with the heavy makeup, you can see she's 60. I seen her pretending to be talking on the phone, avoiding the press. She's a terrible actress. She was calling young people stupid.
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid.
With Kamala, we can't even say Merry Christmas.
How dare we speak Merry Christmas? How dare we?
The laugh is so insincere.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
We have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And yeah, I am radical.
All this woke and radical stuff doesn't do anything for me as a single black mother. All it got me was inflation that hurt me and my kids. Grocery store prices are crazy. I can't pay for food on my income.
I am in favor of saying that we're not going to treat people who are undocumented and cross the border as criminals.
Black people has been in America for 400 years, but Kamala pushes us to the back of the line behind illegals. Why? As borders are. She just filling up our schools with kids who don't speak English just so they can get more government money. Illegals get free health care, but I have to pay. They get free housing, and I'm struggling to pay rent.
Are undocumented immigrants that are the least likely to commit a crime.
And it's more dangerous in our neighborhood. We don't need Venezuelan gangs.
To this day, at 22 years old, I suffer from full paralysis on my right arm and partial in my right leg.
Kamala Harris owes me an apology and my daughter an apology for what she did to us.
Let's be clear, my values have not changed.
Look, I am not a political person, but I want people to know what Kamala Harris has did to me. If she do it to me, she will abuse anyone if you give her the power.
Wow. That right there is touching. This woman is dangerous. And she's always been dangerous. And the news media constantly building her up. Like I said, they are the lying whores. I got one more scripture, and that's in John chapter 8, verses 44. It says, "You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies." So when we get the news media and we get these Democrats still running around here spreading these lies about Charlottesville and Russia, and January the 6th and all this stuff, they're going to constantly lie because that is the nature of the God they serve. And we got people who do not like or do not want to investigate these lies. People who have been so indoctrinated with being a Democrat for so long that they can't see straight anymore. Well, I think you need to see straight. I think you need to look at everything the way it is. I mean, right now, we just got through Hurricane Helene. We got, only God knows how many people have died because they're trying to tell us only like 200 and some people in a hurricane that looked like it was twice as big as Katrina, where over 1,000 people died. We got areas where people can't even get help. And we have in Chicago and Denver and New York City and God knows where else, thousands of illegals living in hotels, getting thousands of dollars for EBT cards, money to buy cars or businesses. I mean, they even acknowledge they put like 20,000 people in Springfield. Okay, folks are arguing about whether they ate cats or not. I could care less if you have a community that will say 60,000 people and you drop 20,000 people from a foreign country in there, you're going to destroy that community. The culture, the society, the ability for people to operate normally is gone. But the Democrats want all these folks. They want all these illegals. And Kamala's right there with them. They want this stuff. And see, we are just going to be pawns in this game unless we decide to take over take back control of our country. There's so much more that I could say about her and the Democrat Party as far as the illegals, but I'm not going to talk about that today because time's sake. I want to show one more little small, like 30-second clip. Show you what the end game is for these people and how they're thinking. They don't care about Americans. I'm talking about the Democrat Party. They care about power. Look at this.
Protect our nation's sovereignty, secure our border, and work to fix our broken system of immigration. And as president, I will work with Congress to create, at long last, a pathway to citizenship for hardworking immigrants who have been here for years. For years. And deserve to have a system that works.
I will work with Congress to make a pathway of citizenship for hardworking immigrants who's been here for years. What about the American people? The promises the Democrat Party have been making since Johnson's Great Society. The promises they made to Black America since 1964 about bringing them up from poverty. Black people were at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder then, and they're still at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder following the Democrat Party. And instead of lifting them up, they're bringing in millions of people that's going to undercut them and everybody else in jobs. Because if you're used to making $5 an hour someplace, and now all of a sudden you can make 10, which is going to cut the person that was making 15. Hey, because the bosses, they want to pay less money so they can get their profit up, then the person that was making 15 is going to suffer. Because he's going to have to go down to 10 to try to find a job where he can still make that, and the 15 wasn't even enough. But the Democrats say they care about the American people. While they're spending thousands and millions, I understood that they spent $150 billion on these illegal aliens. All these illegals didn't just walk across the border. You can't walk from the Congo to the United States. You can't walk from Russia or China to the United States. Hell, you can't walk from Argentina to the United States. Unless you can walk across the Panama Canal or some mess. They've been flying in people as well. This is a government-run invasion, a Democrat Party invasion to get absolute power. It's not that they're compassionate. It's not that they care. Like she said, they work so hard. She don't give a rat's behind about those people. What she cares about is making the Democrat Party the singular entity governing this country. If you can make this a one-party nation, If you can get a bunch of illegals, and by the way, California just made a law that it's illegal to ask for voter ID. They bamboozled so many black people into believing that voter ID is racist. Oh, they're running around saying, well, voter ID is racist against minorities. How is that so? And any black person that haven't lost their mind should see, or brown person should see, that that's an insult. You're saying that I'm incapable of doing what any normal individual should be capable of doing. Therefore, I'm abnormal. Therefore, I need you to take care of me. Now, if you come to some warped understanding that that's true, or either another warped understanding thinking that, well, hey, because they believe that I don't have to worry about this, that, and the other, and it makes it easier for me. No, you've been screwed over, not only intellectually, but in your pocketbook. Because the fact of it is black people only make 12 to 13% of the population. We've been killing off ourselves for years. Out of the 60 million something babies that's been aborted, about 20 million of them are black. About 35 to 40% of the abortions are performed by that 6.5% to 7% of the population. Like I said, black people make about 12 to 13% of the population, so half of those are women. We're killing ourselves off. And those that are left, you're being told, oh, well, voter ID is racist, so we don't want ID. But they're bringing in all these illegals and they're encouraging them to register. And in some municipalities, they try to legally register these people. Think about it. That 12 to 13% of the population cannot compete against the 87%. The only way that your vote is going to really actually count is to make sure that everyone that's voting is a legitimate voter. If you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million illegals voting, it offsets your vote by half or more. Nullify it. It will mean nothing. But the Democratic Party wants you to think that they're doing you a favor when they're actually screwing you with a square pole and no grease, smiling at you and hoping that you like it. And many of you do because you're too stupid to understand what's really going on. If you go to LA, you go to downtown LA about 3 miles from City Hall, you look like you're in a third world country because of all the homeless people living on the street. The vast majority are Americans. It's time to wake up and get away from the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party has hated black people since 1865. Why? Because they were no longer a commodity. Once slavery was over, it had no use for us. But they've managed to convince many of us to stay in perpetual mental slavery. Invisible chains are hard to remove because you can't see them. And by convincing people with the lying media whores that they're on our side, you get stupid people that continue to vote Democrat, straight Democrat line, year after year after year, no matter what they do. Joe can tell you that you ain't black if you don't vote for him. Barack Obama could tell you he's going to give you hope and change. Bill Clinton could play a saxophone and act like, people could say he's the first black Democrat. The greatest employment in my lifetime was during the Trump years. That was the lowest black unemployment in the last 50-something years. The greatest economy we had was during the Trump years before the pandemic. We need to stop listening to the lying whores that get paid to keep us in perpetual bondage. Stop listening to the political whores that smile in your face every 2 to 4 years, and their counterparts, these so-called athletes or these actors who get paid, who lie for a living. Look at the evidence. Use what God-given common sense you have. And by the way, if you call yourself a Christian, all you have to do is operate from a biblical value. Vote biblically. If people are against, if people are for killing babies in the womb or men marrying men, then they're against God. Remember that first scripture I read, Matthew 12:30. Whoever is not with me is against me, and whoever does not gather with me scatters. This is the most serious election in my lifetime. I don't know if the Republicans stand past it. If you are a Bible believing registered Republican, you need to vote this time. If you ain't voted at all, you need to vote. If you are a Bible believing Democrat that have seen the light, you need to vote for Trump and Republican minded people. This goes for independence. We can only ensure the ability to navigate this life and have an opportunity to make changes if we don't let these folks that are trying to circumvent our ability to do that stay in power. We got to get them out of power all up and down the line, because these people are dangerous. They're anti-American. They're anti-God. And if you're American and if you're for America, then it's time to stand up. This is the time to stand up, because there may be no tomorrow. Vote for Trump. Vote for God-fearing Republicans in whatever state and city and county you are in. I mean, if there's a Democrat that you know that's standing up for the things of God and are standing against, and I don't know why they would still be in that party, but if they are, then vote for them. But be honest. If these folks are standing against God and you standing for them, how can you vote for these folks? Think about it. This is Sam Tolley, and I'm out.